How you doing, Robin?
Superb, big guy. How you doing, Ian?
Yeah, not too bad. Well, Robin, I'm embarrassed to say, I think this is our first podcast this year.
No way. No
I think
way.
it is.
Do you know what? See, when you're out trying to find HTH and calcium hypochlorite in every end of the country, yeah, it's no easy to sit down and do a podcast, is it?
No, definitely not. So today, for this one, which we're back for, we want to talk about chlorine and chlorine shortages and why there's a shortage.
Before you go,
Yes,
and start on the nitty-gritty, this is the first podcast for Mitchell and Ogilvy partnership.
it is. It is, yeah, and that's a big win-win for us. So it's been in the pipeline for a while. Me and Robin's known about it, but Mitchell and Ogilvy are official. It came a little bit quicker than what we thought because of the way our work commitments went. But yeah, it's sort of about 2 months now, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So got our own Facebook page. Go on to the Mitchell and Ogilvy Facebook page. We've got people messaging us through the Facebook page, asking questions. We're going to try and expand on that. We have a super duper new team member starting in the office. When's that? A week on Monday?
11th. Yeah, 11th week on Monday.
A week on Monday. We have Laura starting. We're very, very excited. She's got some experience in the business of water treatment, and she's going to be working 18 hours a week for us. So that's going to be fantastic having her in the office and helping out Mitchell and Ogilvy. So that will give us more time to dedicate to our clients. So that's win-win.
Yeah, definitely a win-win. Definitely a win-win. We've got some good projects coming up as well, so that should be quite interesting for us. And do you know what the horrible thing is for you, mate? Is as soon as Laura starts, less than 2 weeks after that, I'm off on holiday.
Lovely, brilliant. Thanks, mate. That's yeah. I'm the one that's got to look after Laura, and now you're away, so she'll be getting all your emails when she's just in the door, and she'll not have a clue how to respond. But anyway,
that sounds good.
We'll get there.
So,
no problem. Nothing's insurmountable.
Right. Can I just say one thing, Robin, before we start talking about chlorine? Me and Robin don't stock it or sell it. So don't be phoning us thinking we've got loads of it in the back.
Now, that I know I used to be working in the business many, many years ago for Albion Chemicals, who were Brenntag when I left. That is 12 years ago, guys. I am not I am not in the game of selling chemicals, and I don't know cost prices and what it should look like to be a good package or added value and all that sort of stuff. So don't start saying, Robin used to work for Brenntag, he'll know how much we should be getting charged for our HTH. Things change very quickly in this industry, guys, as you will probably have noticed over the last couple of months. I'm more than happy to give some expertise on the actual ins and outs of the chlorine and why there's a shortage and who to speak to. Still got lots of contacts. Me and Ian both have got lots of contacts and got lots of good information, and we're more than happy to help you guys out when you ask questions, but don't expect us to get you a good deal. Yeah.
No. And the one thing that I would say as well is chlorine prices fluctuate just as petrol prices do. And I think a lot of us have learned that by now, that obviously demand, supply is low, demand is high, and the price is probably at one of the highest I've ever seen it just now, actually.
I think it's the volatility that's a problem just now, because there were times when I was working for Brenntag that we would provide like a 3-year contract, and maybe not freeze the price for a year, but within that, it might say like you're only going to receive a 2% increase on year 2 and a 2% increase in year 3. So there would be specifics in there. I would very, very much doubt that there's these contracts getting handed out to even the big clients. So I'll be surprised if there's any consistency and security in terms of prices. So I empathise with you guys out there in terms of the costs and in terms of the supply of these chemicals. It's tough, but we'll do our best to give you a wee picture of the reasons behind it.
Yeah, basically today we wanted to try and do a bit of a two-pronged attack. And part of it was off the back of what one of the clients that uses us asked me and Robin to come up with a a chlorine saving plan. So how can you make your chlorine last longer? How can you make it more efficient? So we'll probably talk about that in the second part of this podcast. It's just something that we did for them, put it together, run it by a couple of the specialists that we know, and they're in the same boat as everyone else. And sort of one of the things we thought was we'll just publicize it. So we did put it out as a free, like a PDF poster on the Facebook page and stuff. Didn't charge a penny for it. Bin it, keep it, use part of it, whatever you want. It was free of charge anyway. So there wasn't any sort of real motive behind it for us. But so Robin, you were the chemical man. So let's I'm going to let you start off to say why there's an issue with calcium hypochlorite.
Right. Calcium hypochlorite, in particular, HTH. HTH is in short supply just now, and it comes from America. The company that supplies it is Segura. Are they still called Segura?
No, they've moved again.
They were Arch Chemicals in my day. Arch Chemicals. They became Lonza, Segura. I think they might have gone back to Arch.
They've not. It's something else begin with an S. I'll find it in a second.
Right. Okay. Solena or something. Anyway, so they manufacture calcium hypochlorite under the brand of HTH in Atlanta in America, and then they distribute it around the world. Now, in the past, we've received, in terms of on the big container ships, 24 containers of calcium hypochlorite at a time when they come over to the depot at Castleford, or I think it goes to France possibly, and then it gets taken up to Castleford in the UK. So the main depot is Castleford in the UK for HDH, and then it goes out to the distributors like Brenntag, Univar, and so on. So what's changed? Well, the big container ships, the maximum that they can take on the ship is 12 containers now. So you're now down to half the amount of product that you can actually transport. So that's going to have an impact straight away. You've got the cost of transportation is increasing. You've also got a shortage of drivers in America. Now, we have obviously had our shortage of drivers, but they've also had a shortage of drivers as well, which is having an impact with the HDH trying to get it across the country. And in addition to that, there is a shortage on the plastic that is used for the containers to package up the HDH. So that's the main causes. Now, there's lots of people going on about Brexit. There's lots of people going on about Ukraine and stuff like that. Brexit is not having a huge impact, but obviously there is some additional paperwork that needs to be filled in. But these big companies have got that kind of boxed. The Brexit issue is more with the smaller chemical companies from Europe or whatever that are having to fill it. You know, they're maybe they're nowhere near the size of Segura stroke Arch stroke HTH. They've got a lot of infrastructure behind them to fill in the paperwork and stuff like that. So they're managing that. That's not an issue. It's more the fact that they can't get the product across as much as they could in the past, and that's having a massive impact on the supply chain in this country. There are a few other issues involved, small issues that are having an impact, but that's the crux of it. That's the main part of it.
I mean, to give people a bit of an example as well, the plastic containers that we're talking about, before we were talking about days to get supplied, we're now actually talking in the region of weeks to get supplied with plastic containers. So it's not just even a few days delay, it's a considerable length of delay on the container. So that hasn't helped at all. And what else hasn't helped was, well, last year, and what happened to the chlorine factory?
Oh, aye. Well, a big fire doesn't help. Do you know what I mean? These things never help. Those that are a bit longer in the tooth, that are similar length of time in the business as yourself and myself, will remember what happened to Biolab when their factory went up in fire. That was a disaster. But at the time, the industry came together and said, "Listen, you know, we'll just there'll be no profiteering. And they came together and we managed to supply all the biolab customers without going down the route of taking the piss.
So,
you know, but this time it's different. It's just getting the product is a problem.
Yeah. So we've had a factory partly destroyed.
Yeah.
We've had issues with plastic containers.
Yeah.
There's not enough production.
Yeah.
There's not enough drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you get on the boat?
You know, Brexit has had a minor issue. I would say very much a minor issue. And then the other thing you have to think about with this is the rest of calcium hypochlorite. So the majority of the rest of calcium hypochlorite actually comes from Asia, sort of towards China. Japan has large manufacturers as well. And although I do hear a lot of people saying about, you know, that unfortunately the conflict in Russia and the Ukraine, what you have to remember is they don't drive it here, guys. They ship it in a container ship. They're actually avoiding all of that. You know, they're getting large shipping containers and sort of going down sort of, you know, through the coast of the Indian Ocean, up through, I forget what it's called now. I should know what it is, up through the canal through Egypt. I should know it as well because I've actually passed
Suez Canal.
Suez Canal, that's it. Thank you, Rob. Up through the Suez Canal and then up through the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of that calcium hypochlorite, which is some of the other brands, is usually docked in Belgium, I believe, as an initial point.
Netherlands and Belgium. The Netherlands, there's a lot of it shipped over from the Netherlands. That melchlorite used to come over from the Netherlands.
So then from there, it then comes back to us again. So, you know, there is issues out there. Now, we're talking now calcium hypochlorite, but, and this is the big but, and me and Robin's seen quite a lot of this. We're getting clients contact us saying, I currently use brand X of calcium hypochlorite, but I can't get brand X, but I've managed to get a couple of buckets of brand Y, kind of switch. And the only thing I would say to them is just be wary of a couple of points. Percentage content is slightly different from brand to brand. So just make sure your cost sheet's correct. The other thing is some of the brands have an inferior anti-blocking agent in it. Mm-hmm. And so you may be prone to your injectors blocking up a lot of the time. If you didn't know this, with HTH, the reason why they call it easy flow is because the Calgon content that's in it, they try and prevent your injectors from blocking up.
Yes, it's a question. It's to try and prevent those blockages and sludging and stuff like that. For example, there's obviously differences between the products. The HDH Easy Flow briquettes. Now, the reason that they call them briquettes as opposed to a tablet is because they patented the shape of their tablet into a briquette shape. Now, no other calcium hypochlorite provider can actually deliver the same shape of tablet as HDH because it's patented, you know.
And the tablet is rolled as well, isn't it? Right?
Yeah,
it's not compressed. It's a rolled tablet.
And it's designed to make sure there's no air and pockets in between the tablets when it's in the actual feeder. Whereas an Oddfellow shaped tablet, when it's poured into a feeder, because it's got sharp, straight, 90-degree angle edges, there's potential for air and pockets, which can lead to sludging and blockages. So be aware of that, guys, that there's not all calcium hypochlorite is the same. And just, you know, there's not, they all do a job. They all disinfect the swimming pool, but sometimes one might be more suitable than the other. But in times like these, you know, you're going to use what you can get your hands on, but just be aware that, you know, it might come with other issues, but it's still doing the same job. It's still giving you chlorine in the pool. You might just need to clean out your injector a wee bit more, or you might need to, you know, a bit more planned preventative maintenance with your pellet pro. But that's a side issue, really, when it comes to getting the pools open.
One of my clients, Robin, managed to get hold of some calcium hypochlorite from a Birmingham supplier, not a usual supplier of them. And it was a very much inferior product. And their words to me were, it was like talcum powder.
Aye.
Now, you have to remember as well, so some of the better products are dedusted.
Yeah.
Obviously, that carries more of a health hazard. I know, having used Chinese calcium hypochlorite before, and when I've been out in China, I've seen before where it's got somewhere between 55 to 65%, which is always a bit of a bit of a mind game with me when I'm trying to calculate how much I need to dose in the water.
Listen, there's certain things that you and I can tell them. I think if I was to advise anyone, if you're buying calcium hypochlorite and you're not sure if it's coming from a reputable supplier, something simple like just checking the chemical symbols, the hazard symbols on the product. Now, if it's got an orange symbol with the black, writing on it, then that suggests that it's pre-2015, so it's well out of date. And if people are still trying to punt that sort of chemical, then they should be shot, to be honest. But a lot of things like that, make sure you get a material safety data sheet with it. Make sure it's coming with appropriate labeling on it, and it's getting delivered not out the back of somebody's car, but out of an appropriate vehicle with hazard warning plates on it, segregated spill kits in the vehicle. These are the sort of things that you want to look out for to make sure that you're getting a decent product, and it's going to be of value, and it's going to be proper. Pucka, as they say, isn't it? Pucka. Yeah. So anything you want to add to that, Ian?
No, but what I will say is this. So just to slightly move on a little bit. So Robin, I've seen this. You've seen this. So I was using calcium hypochlorite. I was putting it in a day tank, mixed it with water, had a blending motor on it or an agitator, whatever you want to call it. But I can't get it. But what I did get was 10 barrels of hypo.
Yeah.
So this is the next issue, I think, is I managed to get 10 barrels of hypo. Now, a esteemed colleague of ours, who we'll still call the Jedi Master.
Yeah.
Who's sunning himself in France, and I hope he does listen to this, because occasionally I have a catch up with him every once in a while. He was telling me today, Robin, that quite a few years ago they switched, and he says all they did was they run the day tank down and they filled it up.
Yeah.
Now, that will work. That will work, but there's a couple of issues. What you have to remember is the pH value of these two chemicals, and they will fight against each other initially with the first few day tanks. But the other thing is, I would say, and we're going to allude to this a bit later, you've got to get any contamination out of that day tank.
Huge.
Because, I see it, Robin. I see lids floating in it, or the little neck of where we snap them open and stuff like that, or and it just hasn't been looked after. So that can be a bit of an issue, I think.
Especially when you're going over from cal hypo to sodium hypo, because if anything, even a tiny wee nut falls into that sodium hypochlorite, then that's it. The sodium hypochlorite will oxidize that wee nut, and you'll lose all your chlorine. The chlorine value will be nothing. It'll be right down to less than 5%. So if you are going to be converting or changing over temporarily, even if it is temporarily or permanently, just make sure your housekeeping is good. Make sure you've cleaned everything out. Make sure there's no contaminants whatsoever, and before you add your sodium hypochlorite into the day tank. And bear in mind, manual handling, guys. Yeah. Don't slug it in. There are lots of methods of siphoning it in. There's wee motorized siphons, transfer pumps. There's lots and lots of ways of getting in.
The other thing as well, it's a good point you brought manual handling, Robin, because I forgot about this. So commercial grade calcium hypochlorite comes in 45 kilos.
Yeah.
Now, normally we buy it in 20s or 25s.
That's
or
right.
The domestic market is low as about 5 kg, to be fair.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. I mean, if you are now getting the 45s in because you're thinking, I haven't got much, I need to, they've offered me 45s, I've got to take it, it's all I can take.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of clients do this where they've kept the old 25 buckets, so they're decanting it because they're using dosing systems that are bucketed systems. Just be careful that you have readdressed the manual handling issue, because it'll be a 2-person lift, plus you need to think about what you're doing. And to be fair, I probably wouldn't 2-person lift it. I would decant it with a scoop, or something along those lines until it gets to a point where it is liftable.
Yeah.
But certainly you will have to lift it for the delivery. But so I think there's a few pools out there just now that will be boxing clever, thinking, I switched to sodium hypochlorite, I'm going to be all right, Robin,
Yeah.
because I can't get Cal hypo. But what spun us to do this partly is partly the news of what's about to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of the manufacturers in the UK do make their own sodium hypochlorite.
Yeah.
You know, Brenntag as an example is one of them. They've got a sodium hypochlorite, or a chemical factory, shall we say.
Yeah.
And the other thing you do have to remember with this is Brenntag are not a swimming pool supplier. They are a multinational, worldwide organization and one of the biggest boys out there that are actually just a chemical distributor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The percentage sales that makes up from swimming pools for them is absolutely minuscule. You know, it's a tiny, tiny amount. We are a small fish, and I'm not even going to say in a big pond. I'm going to say in an ocean, a very small ocean. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And sodium hypochlorite, the main factory for sodium hypochlorite in the UK is in Runcorn. And unfortunately, they're having their annual shutdown pretty soon for essential maintenance and I think a bit of a slight refurbishment as well, I think. And they have pre-planned this in for, well, about a month from now, Robin, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I believe it's the first week in May that they're planning that. So we're predicting a sodium hypochlorite, potentially a shortage of that chemical being on the market. And that refurbishment works, I believe, is going on towards middle or end of June.
Yeah.
And that's bearing in mind it goes to plan, because I'm sure we've all had builders before.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
I know.
So if you think your box clever, maybe switch to sodium hypochlorite.
Yeah.
You need to be thinking again. Now, that in itself causes some issues because, you know, Robin, I'm not being funny, but will a site have room to stockpile it?
Well, this is it. And, you know, now that you've got sodium hypochlorite coming in, you've also, you're looking, you need buns for the storage. You need a new cost assessment. You've got to think about PPE. There's all of that. There's all of that needs addressed, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it does need addressed. And the other thing you've got to think about as well is the fact that sodium hypochlorite dissipates quite quickly.
Yes.
So normally, for anyone out there who uses it, generally order about once a month. If you haven't been already, you should stock rotate the barrels. You know, bring the old stuff forward if you're using barrels, put the new stuff to the back, because it will start to drop in percentage. But if you have got the room and you're going to try and stockpile it for a couple of months, yeah, what you have to remember is that the old stuff won't be 14, 15% if that's the percentage you're ordering it in. It'll be a little bit lower. So there's going to be more day tank filling.
Yeah.
And you'll be starting to go through the remainder of it quicker.
Yeah.
But, you know, as Robin said there is, Robin, if I was a site using what, 10 barrels a month? So you think to yourself, it's 2 months, I'll order 20 barrels, but the second half of that's not going to be a decent strength.
Yeah.
So potentially you've maybe got to think about, I'll maybe order another 10% on top of that because of the strength value. It's something really to consider. And as I say, there is storage implications. But even if you haven't got enough space and you think, right, okay, I'll manage to get it from a supplier. Now, I'm not saying this is the case because there is other factories around the UK that are still producing over that time. But the strength that you might be buying could be a little bit weaker as well. And normally from a reputable supplier, you'll get a batch date on the top of this stuff. Give you a bit of an idea of its age. So that's certainly something I'd be thinking about. Have you got anything you'd say on that as well, mate?
No, I think that's you know, there's all lots of good points there, and people just need to not panic. And like you say, you know, just follow your processes and procedures and make sure you've got your cost assessments all up to date, and just think about the common sense aspect of it, you know?
Yeah. So as part of all this process, I was initially asked by one of the clients, and I went back to Robin as well, about what can we do to make our chlorine last longer? Now, to be fair, in actual fact, I think, Robin, doesn't matter about the pandemic of chlorine or, you know, the fact we haven't got any chlorine just now.
Yeah.
I think maybe we should be doing this because it's a cost saving. Do you not think?
Yeah, no, definitely.
So we came up with this 10-point saving plan for chlorine, so to speak, which was I'm going to put it up on the screen here. So for anyone who tunes in with us onto YouTube, Robin, hopefully they'll be able to see this.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I say, we put it out on the Facebook page. If anyone wants a copy, just contact us, request it, send us an email. It's just a PDF. It's only one page, so it'll just be a tiny little thing. And it's funny that it was the client actually said come up with 10 points, so we were the one that came up. There may well be more than this, but this is the 10 big ones that we came up with, and they're in no particular order, might add. And these are from what we've done from our experience. We can't quantify how much you'll save because you don't know how much contamination is going to be on the person, the water temperature you're running at, the type of system you've got. There's too many variables.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say, it will save you chemical.
Yeah.
So, Robin, this first point, backwashing. Now, you need to be quite fine out with this. So, I go to a lot of places, so does Robin. It says backwash for 10 minutes or backwash for 5 minutes. Yeah. But the sight glass was already clear.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a good pool and you're in control of your TDS and the TDS is fine and you're operating okay, you don't have any issues with it, the dilution rate is fine with the pool and stuff, and and your backwash has been clear for a minute or so, that's chlorinated water you're putting down the drain.
Yes. Yes. And also in the code of practice, it says 6 minutes.
Yeah, it does say 6 minutes. It does say 6 minutes. So is there a possibility that you could maybe, backwash for a little bit longer? Now, when the code of practice changed last year, there was more emphasis on the pH and set points. So originally it was saying sort of set points of 7.0 to 7.2 in the code of practice. I know a lot of people are still sitting at 7.2, 7.3, and some even high 7.4. But to give you a bit of a rough idea, the amount of active free chlorine that's available will considerably change. So even if you take, for example, at 7.2, it's about 65%-ish active free chlorine. And at 7.4, it's about 52%.
Yeah.
Even if you're a pool that doesn't want to go that low, well, if you go from your 7.4 to 7.3, you've probably jumped up about 6% efficiency.
Yeah.
As a rough guide. And that's a good thing in total, because that's just lowered your chlorine bill by 6% annually. But for me, I'd really be striving to get that level down. Personally, I know a lot of people are worried about balanced water, and guys, there's less emphasis on balanced water. Our German counterparts are running pHs as low as 6.5, 6.6. I've been out there, I've seen it. Robin's seen some of the photos I brought back and some of the stuff that I did just before Christmas. Some of the standards they had, my jaw was hitting the floor. Don't panic. I'm not suggesting for anyone to go as low as that as a pH range, but a 0.1 decrease is not going to do a massive shift in this. And Robin, he loves these yellow cylinders of death.
Yeah, big time.
Because I keep involving them with the yellow cylinders of death, which is chlorine gas, if anyone doesn't know this. Chlorine gas pools, and there isn't many of them in the UK. I think there's 7 to count left, I think it is. The pHs will sit about 6.8, 6.9, 7.0 because they struggle because it's so acidic. Yeah. So, Rob, what about the next one there? Prevent any runoff, getting back to the pool, all this contamination from poolside.
Aye, well, the pools that have been built more recently, I've got the wee handy drain, and obviously the wee drain that's furthest away from the edge of the pool and next to the, whatever, the wall, the changing rooms, the toilets or whatever. So we've got that handy drain that allows us to separate the chemicals. And when we're cleaning the pool side, it allows us to move all the waste product into a separate drain. Now, there was PUTAG guidance on deck level channels where we had to almost put a partition in it that allowed us to take, dirty water when we're cleaning the pool side away from going into the water treatment system. But I think most facilities now tend to install that drain, which is away from quite a distance away, probably what you would say 1.5 meters. Is that? I think that's maybe in the British standards, maybe 2 meters away from the actual grill and the grills and the deck level channel itself. Now that helps ensure that we're not getting contaminants in the pool when we don't need to, and it helps make sure that none of the contaminants from the pool side are going into the pool and then using up chlorine from the pool, because that's the last thing you want to be doing, is using chlorine up when you don't need to. I mean, one of the places I worked at, they used to take the mats from the changing room. The mats you get, the rubber plastic mats,
the usual things in JPL.
Yes, and I used to catch my staff dunking them into the pool last thing at night, just to give them a clean, because they couldn't be asked washing them down. And I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? That's where we go swimming, in there, and you're putting all the cake of the day from the mats in there. And I'm like, see if your man comes in to do a bacteriological sample tomorrow, we are definitely shut. That's a definite, because you've just horsed in a whole heap of contaminants. Chlorine's going to get used up, combine's going to go through the roof, and you just know that the organics are going to go high as well. So if there's no UV, that's a real problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I did that. I've learned my lesson.
But yeah, we were trying to prevent as much pollution getting into the pool in the first place is massive. And Priest from Hygiene's huge on that, and cleanliness and just efficient cleanliness is a way to try and prevent unnecessary use of chlorine.
Yeah. So this next one, guys, it kind of has a bit of a double-edged sword for me. Your chlorine injectors. So you've maybe got it down, I don't know, you clean it once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, or maybe you even use a contractor to do it. But when your chlorine injector starts to block up, you can imagine if that is slightly blocked, then what's going to happen is the system is going to demand more chlorine because it can't get through the injector. Now, it's actually an energy saving point as well. So for me, I'm a fan of having a second injector. So you can have one on, one off, and clean them out and rotate them through a pattern. Certainly make sure that you're trained to do this, and you have a safe system of work. But you maybe want to up the cleaning of the injector just to ensure the maximum dosage is going in there. And really hand in hand with that, day tank strength of the acid, Robin.
Yeah.
It's key, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course it is. You need to, the last thing you want to be doing is working your dosing pump in overdrive. And you want to be making sure that the pH is actually coming down as well. So there's all of those issues. Listen, we could talk all day about the strength of the acid. If you're using hydrochloric acid, you don't want to be in over 25%, because then you're going to get lots of fuming. But also you don't want it too weak, because then you're not going to manage to achieve the pH level that you need. So
again, alkalinity when you calculate this. Now, guys, the dosing of alkalinity is really key in how you do it. I did a short YouTube video on it. It's on our Swim Pool Network YouTube channel. Please subscribe. You'll get this video on there. Subscribe, have a look. If you scroll back through the catalogue of videos, you'll see it. It's about 3 minutes long on how to do it. It's a really quick, basic demonstration I did in lockdown when I was a bit bored in my kitchen. But getting the alkalinity levels correct, because not only will it help that, but also flocculation, depending on what type of flock you've got on the water, what chemical you're actually storing. That's key for the whole thing as well. I think the next one's an easy one, Robin, isn't it? Just, if you're not aware, stop, rotate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you know what, Robin? I wasn't aware of this when I was 17, working for a large hotel chain. And I remember I had a couple of barrels that had always been sat at the back, and we nearly ran out one day, so I had to use these 2 old barrels, and literally did nothing as part of it. Did absolutely nothing, because it had just been sat at the back at all times. And it was only then when I started to look into it, lo and behold, who knew a chemical went out of date?
I know.
In fact, lots of them do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Stock rotation's huge. You and I have been on loads of audits where we go around and there's chemicals there that are 4 or 5 years old. For a dry product, anything over 2 years old, and shouldn't really be there.
Well, you lead both cleaning scum lines. You love it, don't you? You love cleaning scum lines.
Who doesn't like cleaning scum lines? Yeah, I haven't cleaned scum lines in 25 years, big guy. I've always had someone else to clean the scum lines.
You know what? I actually did one about 4 years ago. I did a couple of tiles just to demonstrate how bad it was at a pool I was at. And they reckoned they hadn't done it in about 2 years. That pool not far from me.
Yeah.
And it was grey. It had a lovely grey line across the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, cleaning your scum lines, again, for me, potentially, the reason why I want to do this is because you don't realise that a lot of bacteria lives in the biofilms in the scum line.
Yeah.
And the biofilms, or the body fat that's there, acts as a protective coating over the top of it. And it almost repels the chlorine from being able to get there. So because it repels the chlorine can't get in there to kill the bacteria that's already manifesting in there. And eventually, when there's so much, the bacteria just releases into the water. So cleanliness is, they say, next to godliness. And this is certainly something you want to have done.
It also uses up a load of chlorine. Biofilm uses up a load of chlorine.
In the same instance, Robin, and we won't use names, but we were at a pool before Christmas.
Yeah.
Large pool, a balanced tank. It hadn't been cleaned in 13 years.
I know, mental. See, that will use up the chlorine. Your deck level channel, if you're not cleaning that monthly, you'll get biofilm in there. That will use up the chlorine. Biofilm in the sand, if you're not managing to backwash correctly. There's also good practice that you can engage with your filters to remove the biofilm. You can purge your filters maybe once a year or every couple of years to try and remove the biofilm. And all of these good practices help to obviously reduce the amount of chemical that you need to use in terms of chlorine. And, if we can be as efficient as we can, we're laughing. I'm probably going to need to shoot off in a minute, big guy, but
okay.
If anyone wants these 10 points, what's the way to get them?
Contact us through our Facebook page, Mitchell and Ogilvy. I'll take the guys through the last couple of points. Just before we go, which I'll take them through. Listen, guys, since Christmas, we've been doing a lot of work on energy, about usage, what's happening, how we're doing it. We're going to release some pretty exciting stuff, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, about energy. Again, it's because it's going to have a massive impact, we feel, over the next 12 months on our industry. We're not being funny, but me and Robin love pools. We want pools because otherwise we're out of a job.
Big time.
Yeah. And then we will be scrubbing scum lines.
Yeah.
So, Robin, if you want to say goodbye, and I'll take the guys through the last few points.
Brilliant. You want me to just hang up in the wee button?
Yeah,
mate?
you just hang up, mate. I'll speak to you later.
Good luck, listeners. Ian's got a couple of really good points about prevention, which should help with reducing the amount of chlorine you need. I'll catch up with you soon. Go on to the Facebook page, get your name on there. We'll send you the 10-point plan, and we promise we'll have our next podcast very soon to talk about the exciting things that Ian's just mentioned there. Good luck, guys. See you later.
See you later. Cheers. Yeah, so the last 2 points, really, just to take us through this, is pre-swim showering. Now, we've been advocating this for very many years, pre-swim showering. There's some great advantages of this when it comes to dilution and dilution rates. There's around about 14 to 16 countries around Europe that do this, but by pre-swim showering for approximately 30 seconds, and I understand that people won't do that, it'll remove 2/3 of the cosmetic product off your body, as well as the sweat, and up to 1/3 of the bacteria. And it's really prevalent that we encourage this. If someone's got a sauna, a steam room, a spa, in between facilities, to try and get the contamination off them before they're going to enter the swimming pool. Now, I've spoken to a couple of pools recently who took the 10-point plan a couple of weeks ago, and they have really cracked down on this. And one particular pool said to me it's the first time they've seen this particular swim club ever be forced to take these showers, because the alternative is we run out of chlorine, or if you take a shower, we can save it and preserve it for a little bit longer. And if we run out of chlorine, you're not going to be swimming. So, and I think for me, it should be something that should be moving forward. Our European counterparts use swimming pools much more effectively than us. So this is something that we should be doing anyway. And then finally, this is a controversial one. What about lowering our temperature? Now, I'm going to do some work on this, hopefully, about lowering pool temperatures. But certainly in the first instance, I would be possibly consider lowering maybe the spa temperature by a degree or two. I don't think they'd notice it just by simply lowering by 1 degree. The idea of that is a fewfold. Is firstly, every 10 degrees that you go up in temperature doubles the growth rate of bacteria. So if you've got a pool at 28 and the spa's at 38, the spa temperature is doubling the growth rate of bacteria at that point compared to the pool. Now, regardless of that, you'll be sweating a lot more. By reducing that temperature a little bit, sweat less demand in chlorine, hence why we'll save a little bit of chlorine. Okay, and I don't think you'll see a massive change in the temperature shift for that of customers sort of complaining, so to speak. Pools, I'd be a little bit more wary of, although I have put it in there because I do think it will make a difference. But what I would say is possibly think about hanging fire on the pool stuff, or if not, do it now, because I'm going to talk a lot more about this. And I've been doing some work on this as far as energy saving and potential long-term impact. But what I will say is I do know of suppliers of swimming pools in the UK, large multinational companies that have already moved and done this and lowered by 0.5 degree, and one in particular lowered by as much as 1 degree. I know of a couple that have already moved and done this. So hopefully with a plan, and as I say, if you want a copy, just contact us and we'll send you one. We're not precious with it, cut and paste it, put your own logo on it, do whatever you want. Change it to 5 points, or if anyone can think of some additional points, then great, fantastic. As I say, this is our first podcast in a while. We're hoping to get one in the next few weeks because we realize energy is a really hot topic, especially with the rise in cost. And I hope that everyone's staying well and having a good time out there. Thanks a lot.